The death of martial arts legend Bruce Lee has been one that has been shrouded in much controversy and conspiracy theories since the very day that he died up to even this present date. But how did Bruce Lee actually die? Some would wonder. Some believe that they actually know the cause of his death. Now, I being a 60s baby, and I started martial arts in the early 70s, a couple years before Bruce Lee actually passed away, I believe what his mother said about the official cause of death. I know it's difficult for some people to grasp or wrap their brains around there not being foul play involved in his death. Now, there could have possibly been, let me just throw this footnote in there was definitely reason for there to be foul play in his death because he did go against the grain of Asian culture. They never wanted anyone, especially people from the West, to have exposure to their ancient secrets of martial arts, kung fu, and so forth. And during this particular time that Bruce Lee was catapulted to stardom, it was no different. They felt like he shouldn't teach anyone that was not Asian martial arts. So therein lied the conspiracy theory, if you will, that he was killed by someone from the old system of martial arts, some elders, or some elders had him killed, or even someone who was a master of the dim mak or the death touch killed him. There were some that said that Bruce Lee was killed by some gangs, but that was their interpretation and that was their point or their take on how he died. But as I said, the mystery of his death has been flooded with all types of conspiracies. So, how do I believe he died again? I believe that he died, me personally, how his mom said he died, Grace Lee. Uh, my viewpoint is this: Bruce Lee was an exception to martial arts during his lifetime, in that he trained traditional starting out, but his mind was open to everything, such as myself in present day. In other words, I believe and have always believed, I have that is, that everyone has something to offer. Every martial arts style and or system has something to offer. The answers to our questions is never found in one place. I know there are instructors that say, you can't study more than one martial arts style or system. That's not true. You can take the foundation of those systems or what makes them what they are, their core elements, as it were, and utilize those to build a framework for your own individual expression. And this is what Bruce Lee did. So he started out with Jun Fan Kung Fu, and he ended up with Jeet Kune Do, which was ultimately an expression of himself. And this was a compilation, or the result of a compilation of many martial arts systems. As he said many years ago when he was living, it's like a sculptor. You don't keep adding clay to the project, to the sculpture. You begin to chisel away the unessential things, the baggage, the things that you have accumulated that are worthless or not useful for you, in other words. And then you'll find the truth beneath. And that's pretty much the way that I see things. A lot of the things that we were taught were expressions of other men's ideologies. and their opinions even. So where does the individual factor in? So I'm going to follow what you teach me as being the whole truth. But what about my own individual and self-expression? I should be allowed to have that just as you did in creating your own system or style. So, getting back to the original premise of this video, who killed Bruce Lee? Bruce Lee killed Bruce Lee. How did he do that, brother teacher? Seeking perfection in himself. If you look at the man, and if you watch his earlier martial arts films, you will see the evolution of Bruce Lee from a physical standpoint and even a philosophical standpoint. His first movies, he was in great shape. And I do say great shape. His subsequent movies, he was in greater shape because he always outdid what he did prior to. And when he began to work on his Enter the Dragon project, which was his baby, when you look at his skill, when you look at his musculature, his flexibility and his speed, his timing, it was all of the other movies that he had done prior to combined. He was at his absolute peak, his height in Enter the Dragon. And it's a sad thing that he didn't see it come to the box office. But the relentless training daily for hours and hours to perfect one's self, and even oftentimes sleepless days trying to be the best you that you can possibly be. This man was infatuated. I take that word back. Infatuation does not do him justice. That's an illusion. This man was obsessed. That's a better word. He was obsessed with his journey. He was obsessed with trying to get to the root of the martial arts and what made it function. And what made it function for him, the individual. He was a father, a husband. He was an instructor. He was a filmmaker. He was a choreographer. He was many things, a philosopher. All of these hats that Bruce Lee wore at the same time is what caused his demise. Even through injury of his back, he was working on his art. He was taking notes. He had manuscripts. He had illustrations. He was always involved mentally and physically in his craft. And at some point in time, working on the movie project, he took a break. And he had a headache. And he took some medication of a co-star in his film. And he had an allergic reaction to the medication. And then he fell into a coma, never to awaken. Blood vessel burst in his brain. He died as they stated, death by misadventure. Some say an aneurysm, an aneurysm. My first wife died just like that from an aneurysm. The stressful life that Bruce Lee had in his 32 years of becoming the most profound martial artist of our time, seeking perfection in himself, not anyone else, but in himself. This is what led to his death. It is unfortunate. We all, as a society and as a world, have lost a great pioneer, a great innovator, a great martial artist, a great philosopher, a great man, and even humanitarian in Bruce Lee. He did make his mark. That's the most important thing at the end of the day. I'm sure that he never expected to live such a short life. But as he stated, goals are not always meant to be reached. They often serve as something simply to aim at. Those were his words. But in his short tenure here on planet Earth, I believe that Bruce Lee did reach his goal. And that was to be the best him that he could possibly be. And if you look at the impact that he has had in the martial arts world and in the world abroad, I believe he accomplished that. This is how the late, great Bruce Lee died. This is Brother Teacher. Let me know what your comments are in the comment section below.